Revolution in our time. Outside my prison cell, I can see a large area of grass. It's going brown. Here, somewhere in Norfolk, UK, I think it's rained only once in the last 2 months. This morning I read that this spring has been the driest on record. Farmers say if it doesn't rain in the next 10 days, they will lose their cereal crops. They are grown in massive fields, so they cannot be irrigated. This country is entering a farming crisis for the 3rd year running. Does anyone listening to me think that this is not a real possibility? As a farmer myself, I grew commercial crops for 20 years. When I walked my fields every week during the planting season, each May, I would say to myself, if it doesn't rain in the next week, I'm going to lose that crop. I knew with absolute certainty because I'd seen it many times before. You get to know when that point is. When you lose the whole crop, you don't get to plant it again because it's too late in the season. It's not like being at the supermarket where you can pop in and just buy yourself another crop. That's not how nature works. It's now or never. We are now in a world where each year we walk on the edge of chaos. It's only a matter of time before we stumble and fall off that edge. Food shortages, social unrest, starvation. But this is supposed to be the 21st century. How can it be happening? Did you hear people say this in the recent blackouts in Spain? Nature does not care about our 21st century. It does not care about our beliefs about what should or should not be happening. It has no mercy. It's physics. Meanwhile, nothing is happening. The climate movements have collapsed. No one is moving. Everyone is frozen. Meaning nothing is going to happen, presumably. No, that could not be more wrong. What is actually going to happen is everything is going to happen. This moment is the calm before the storm. It's not a calm of contentment. It's the calm of fear and anxiety, suppressed terror. We know what is coming, and we are frozen. What happens within the mind of the individual also happens on the social level. Things are about to explode for the very same reason that nothing is exploding at this moment. Think about it. You are terrified, you freeze, and then suddenly you fight. A trigger flips in your brain from frozen to fight, from calm to storm, from pre-revolution to revolution. This morning, after looking at the brown grass, I read the latest paper from James Hansen, the world's top climate scientist, so presumably he knows what he's talking about. His team is, quote, 99% certain that a doubling of CO2 will take us to 4.5 degrees, not 3 degrees, as the IPCC predicts. Like they predicted, we would not hit 1.5 until 2050. Remember that? When a scientist says 99%, you know it's going to happen. We are speeding into the greatest catastrophe in human history within the next decade. The storm will then break, as Hansen says, with 99% certainty. It is going to happen. Look at it this way. When 200 people died and 100,000 cars were wrecked in the flooding in Valencia last year, thousands of people came out onto the street. So, do you really think it's never going to get worse than that? Of course not. We are at 1.6 degrees, and we are adding 0.4 every decade. We'll be hitting 2 degrees by 2035. So next time, 2,000 people will die. Whole towns will be washed away. Do you think that the good people of Spain will just roll over? No, there will be 1 million people in the streets, and the dice will be rolled on bringing down the government. And when, at 2 degrees, the next fire in Los Angeles burns down 100,000 houses rather than just 10,000, do you really think that the good people of Los Angeles will just go, it's just another day? No, they'll be out on the streets, and there'll be all hell to pay. This is revolution in our time. This is what is coming, as surely as night follows day. This prediction is not ideology. It's not some subjective opinion, some mad cult. No, it's physics. It's 2 plus 2 equals 4. But the people of Spain and California are not revolutionaries. We need to get this into our heads. Revolutions are not started by revolutionaries. They're started by conservatives, meaning by people who want to go back to how it was before the storm. Revolutions are revolts against revolutions already being imposed upon us by the elites. This is the reason revolutions happen, because people have no other choice but to revolt, because of the extent of chaos and death being created by the people in charge. The Russian Revolution was not created by the Bolsheviks. It was created by the Tsar and his ministers, who had the bright idea to continue a war that was killing millions of young men and starving everyone else. What do you expect people to do? As the great sociological quote goes, revolutions are not made, they come. But once they come, it has to be decided where they go. Going back to the past is now just not possible. We have to find a way forward into a new world, a new revolution. And this new world, this new revolution, comes from a revolution within. So let's look at this. I got an email last week from a good friend. He said, I know the planet's burning. I know 4 billion people are at risk. I know it's happening now. I also know that we are tiny players in a global catastrophe driven by monstrously evil men with bottomless pockets. I've done nothing on the crisis for a year now, and I think I know why. We have to frame this existential crisis in terms of what's the difference that I can make. With all due respect to him, this is a classic example of the irrationality of rationality. People decide to do nothing because nothing is happening, because they are mere tiny players. So it's not worth the cost of me acting. People don't go onto the streets because they think about it. They don't sit down and make a calculation of costs and benefits. They do it because they feel, and what they feel is mad. Thinking is our greatest enemy. If you don't believe me, let me ask you this. Why is it that the most educated, secular, wealthy, and powerful civilization in human history, in full knowledge of the consequences of its actions, is about to destroy itself in the next decade. If this is not the most almighty headfuck, then I ask you what is. But the reason for this is staring us in the face. Because what thinking really is the ego at play. What's in it for me? Will I have an impact? All that endless neoliberal bullshit. I will only act if I can get a return. No one else is acting, so it's not rational for me to act. Why is probably the greatest quote in the past century this from Churchill? I offer you, what? A return on your investment? No. I offer you blood, sweat, and tears in the face of Hitler's invasion of Britain. It's the greatest quote because it cuts through all the bullshit. It's about you getting beyond your me ego. It's all hopeless. So what? Get on with it. It's about what every wisdom tradition and religion has been saying for the last 5,000 years, for God's sake. That this life owes you nothing. It owes you nothing. It's not all about you. It's not about you at all. The key question of the universe is not, how do I make an impact? It's, how do you want to live your life? Your life is not a work project. It's a piece of art. It's not about getting stuff done. It's about enacting beauty. So when you die, you can look back and say, my life was a thing of beauty. It's not about the bloody bean counters that you accumulated. It's about being proud of how you lived, not about what you achieved. I mean, the universe does not give a damn about what you, as a tiny player, got done. Who cares? You're going to be forgotten. You're going to be gone. As they say in Zen, you have to kill your ego, and then you can fly free. Only then can you be in genuine service. This is why Luther got endlessly mad about all the good works will get you to heaven stuff. Life is not about a journey. It's about a state, a decision to act for the good because it is good, to act for God because God is God. Torturing ourselves, trying to work out how we will be saved, how we will save this world, all that is frankly well beyond our pay grade. Our job is not to think rationally about all this stuff and then decide there's no point and do nothing because there's no point. That is worship of the self, the idolatry of the self. It is the pathway to hell, as we see all around us. All those super rational elites creating all that hell. No wonder all those wise people throughout history say it's a fucked way to live, because it is. I can imagine some of you feeling miserable about what I'm saying here. You're trying to work it out. You're doing that thinking thing. Don't think, imagine. Imagine that while you are free but unhappy, not in prison, I am unfree and yet happy in prison. Imagine why that might be the case. Because after 6 months of sitting alone in a cell, looking at the wall each day, it suddenly dawns on you that you have nothing but your consciousness and time, this moment here and now. That's it. There's really nothing more and nothing less. You don't think this, you realize it, you experience it. It's a visceral thing. So when the guards come in and take your telly, your stuff, drag you off to another prison, you realize they can take what they like, but they can never take away your consciousness. And when you get out of prison and get lots of stuff again, you're still encased in this moment, in your own body. You can have a massive house, but you can only be in one room at a time. Nothing real then can be given to you, and nothing real can be taken away from you. Possessive materialism is just a hobby. It's a passing phase. It's a cultural peculiarity. As my mother used to say, you can't take it with you when you go. Why did Jesus say, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth"? Was he just winding us up when he insisted that being poor is where it's at? No, he was one of the wisest men ever to live. I've just read Grace and Power by Dominic Bardet about living in Christian-based communities in 1980s Brazil. The first 20 pages of the book are taken from his diary in the slums of Sao Paulo, the disease, the shootings, the death. And so how can he say that God lives in such abject humanity? Because these are the people who can connect, show solidarity, and so win in the streets. They create political miracles, not despite all the shit, but because of it. They have no education, wealth, or status. Their egos got killed early on. Their humility brings them a very different sort of power, a sort of power that creates what's going to be our real revolution. Because what was happening in Sao Paulo in the 1980s is what's going to be happening in Western cities in the 2030s. People will have their egos killed, and then, and only then, will they be open to remaking the world. The faith in the old religion of secular reason, all that thinking, is going to collapse. The new faith, this leap of faith which is always inviting us to escape from the self, from mere thinking, will invite us to finally actually live our lives, meaning to live for beauty, for truth, and for goodness. Not because of any impact they will have, any instrumental value, but because of what they are, because of their intrinsic glory. They are the colors with which you'll paint the picture of your life. They bring us close to God, as they say. So, when you're asked to donate that £10,000 you have, you're not losing it, you're freeing yourself from it to get something so much better. When you're asked to give up your job, your course, and work for Rev 21, you're not losing your status, you are escaping from it to live a life that is truly glorious, this life of beauty, truth, and goodness, rather than what you have at the moment, a life of fear and guilt. And this is the point here. You are, in fact, getting ahead of the curve. You are arriving before the crowd in the new land. You are preparing the ground. The rest will be following on behind soon enough, don't worry. As their world falls apart, you get to tell them about the new world. You get to point the way. So when they destroy the old regimes, as these inevitable revolutions happen, you will be there, flying the flags of love as an alternative to the flags of hate. This is our calling at the present time. You have to stop all that thinking and open yourself up to grace. In other words, it will be okay. Trust me. Sure, you'll have your down days, don't we all? But this is the real revolution in our time. The outside and the dark inner side. You do not make it, it comes. We all feel it. It is coming. Thank you.